So here's a quick explainer on how the electoral system works in the United States. Remember, 5th of November is the election day, but early voting is ongoing even as we speak in several states. So unlike in India, voters in the US may vote on ballot papers or electronic systems. Both systems are available. Actually, there are three primary voting mechanisms. As you can see in this graphic, it is direct recording electronic voting, that is DRE. There is hand marked paper devices where you actually tick a digital paper, your preferred choice, and then there is ballot marking devices. So these are the three different ways in which the voters exercise their franchise. So over the last 2 decades, the US has gradually moved back from electronic voting machines to paper ballots. That is an interesting point that must be noted and is often quoted, of course, by those who do not believe in EVMs in India. But let me just give you a breakdown and explain to you about these three systems that I just mentioned. First, let's talk about the hand-marked paper ballots. They are currently the most commonly used voting mechanism, and 69.9% of the registered voters in US reside in areas where this is the system that is prevalent. So the hand-marked paper ballots is a system which is practiced in 69.9% by voters, of registered voters, reside in jurisdiction which has this system. The second is the paper ballots. Now this is used by all voters in 25% of jurisdictions. So all voters in these jurisdictions use the paper ballots. And the third is the direct recording electronic systems, which were once seen as the future of voting in US, but in 2024 only 5% of voters reside in jurisdictions where voters will be using this mechanism, and this is the mechanism which is like the EVM in India. So that is how the three systems work. Basically, the idea of this video is to give you a clear understanding of how the voting works in the United States. So for that, I have to first explain to you what is an electoral college, because it is the electoral college that determine the entire voting system. In US's unique electoral system, votes are cast by public in favor of a presidential candidate, but it does not go to the candidate. It's called the popular vote, which actually goes to an elector. Now, who's this elector? This elector is a person selected by the party, and he is the person who's taking all the votes. For example, if someone is voting for Donald Trump, then say X is the person who gets all Donald Trump's vote. He is the nominee for the Republican. So that is how it works. Even though you are voting for Donald Trump, someone else who is in his place in that particular state gets the vote. And it is a winner takes it all system, and it's not like how it works here. That person, if he gets the highest number of votes, then he mops up all the votes. I'll explain this again, but the only issue that we have to, of course, be very clear about is that it's a very different system from how things work in India. If you want to know how many electors are there in the Electoral College, the number is 538, which therefore means that a candidate, a presidential candidate, would need to secure a majority of 270 electoral votes. That is the number that will be the make or break number for the two presidential candidates, this time, of course, being Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Now, again, to go back to the point of who are these electors, because they mop up all the votes, let's just explain to you how this works. So prior to the election, the two political parties select a slate of preferred electors in each state. The selection is based on established conventions that vary from state to state and party to party. So a party slate generally comprises long-time members, workers, or people with a, say, personal or political affiliation with the party's candidate. There are few provisions in the US Constitution regarding who's qualified to be an elector, so it's kept largely very open. Members of Congress or any person holding an office of trust or profit under the United States cannot be an elector. So these are the people who are excluded from being selected as a elector. So how are the electors elected then? The Electoral College is chosen by popular vote. This is essentially what the election on the 5th of November is going to be doing. The public will vote to comprise this body called the Electoral College. So first step is to actually constitute the Electoral College. And who will constitute the Electoral College? The electors. And the public will vote for these electors, and these electors will then comprise the Electoral College. That Electoral College will be the final authority to vote for the president and the vice president. So as I mentioned earlier, most states have a winner-takes-all system, meaning whoever wins the popular mandate in the state secures its entire allocation in the Electoral College. So he gets the whole seat. If he gets the highest number of popular votes, he manages to get the position in the Electoral College stamped and sealed. This is central to how electioneering also works in US, because candidates tend to focus on states where the race is close, the swing states, and that have limited incentive to allocate their campaigns time and resources to states where they are either firmly winning or firmly losing, in the sense that there are red states and blue states which are very predictable. So there are very few so-called swing states or bellwether states that are unpredictable, that can go this way or that, and those are the states that the campaigns normally focus on. And as I said, the electors meet in their respective state capital after the casting of vote is done, and then it is their turn to actually exercise the franchise as the representative of the public. So this is by and large a formality, actually, if you look at it, because it is understood, obviously, that if you are from such and such party, if you are a nominee of the Republican, your vote as somebody in the Electoral College will go to Donald Trump. So that part is more or less predictable. Of course, there have been aberrations there. More than 99% of electors in US history have voted as pledged. But in the 2016 election, there was a time, a spate of so-called faithless electors who refused to vote for their party's candidate did happen. Many of them, of course, were disqualified and replaced. A quick word on how votes are counted. Both hand-marked paper ballots and ballots filled using BMDs are counted using optical scanners, and then they are tabulated by computers to expedite the counting process. Given the far more rigorous standard for ballot production, which is now compared to in 2000, the process largely goes on without any glitches. However, after counting and tabulation is complete, states have varying periods of time to self-audit the results, which can actually be done manually or with machine assistance. Most states have a provision for a recount, which can be ordered depending on the margin of victory. So ultimately, election officials must issue a so-called certificate of ascertainment showing the final vote tally by a specific date. This year, the deadline is 11th of December, which is, as you can see, more than a month after the election date. So we will only know by end of this year for sure how the voters in the United States of America vote and who is elected. The jury is out on who is ahead at this point of time, whether it's Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Thanks for watching.